Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time. It's time for another mock draft. This time with some friends. And Jets fans, don't hate me, but I'll be sleeping with the enemy today on the next episode of The Draft Dodgers. Coming up after this. We are back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your friend Dom C. here on another episode of The Draft Dodgers. It's Mock Draft Monday. Well, technically, almost Mock Draft Monday. It's Mock Draft Sunday night. Filming tonight, getting ready to put out some content for you for tomorrow, like always, like clockwork. Let me get the housekeeping out of the way. If you haven't done so, please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification. Project Prospect at Dom C. Really help me out. Leave some comments, throw a like in there. Let's get some friendly discourse going back and forth. Really helps the YouTube algorithm boost my stuff up so it can get out to more of the masses. So it's playoff weekend, wildcard weekend. Some kind of stinker games today. Not very exciting, but mock drafts are always exciting. And today, I'm very excited to collaborate with some of the guys from the Draft Professors. Let me bring up first Jim Wickens and Randall Slifer. Guys, how you doing today? And congratulations. Let me get it out of the way. Bills look dominant, yada, yada, yada. It's the last we're going to talk about that right here, right now. But guys, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Love it.
Nah, awesome.
It's good to be here. Sometimes I think I see Randall more than I see my own family. So,
and ladies and gentlemen who are watching, I do have both Jim and Randall's Twitter handles across the little thing on the bottom, flashing across all their contact information for their personal Twitter accounts and for the Draft Professor website will be in the video clipping, so you'll be able to see that and catch on to that. So we're going to get into a first round mock, actually a first round plus one, since there's three of us today. We're going to be going each going one by one, and just to make it even, we figured we'd throw in number 33 in there. So we'll see who gets the lucky number 33. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the mock draft simulator. Now, I followed Tankathon and made the updates according to, as we stand right here at 8 p.m.-ish on Sunday night. So the Broncos and the Steelers and the Chargers and the Packers, who are all wildcard losers, have all been moved up. Things aren't finalized yet, obviously. We got the Bucks playing the Commanders as we speak. Some more games to go on. So this is as accurate as it's going to get. And I just want to make sure I have everything square. I'm going to pick all the teams. That's always one thing I always forget. And we're going to go ahead and get into this draft here. So we're going to do it clean. There's going to be no trades. It's too early to mess around and play like that. But we're going to hopefully have some good, friendly discourse about some of these players. And Randall, since you're on the bottom, that means you're going to go first. And you were on the clock. You were on the clock, my friends, for the Tennessee Titans. So I leave it up to you.
There we go. And then that means I get 33rd pick. But yeah, all right. So Tennessee Titans, they just fired Rand Carthon, and that was very surprising, which makes me seem like the ownership is impatient. So I believe that they just stick at one and they go with the quarterback. And I know that there's reports that Cam Ward was one of their favorites, but I believe that Shedeur Sanders works better in that system. So I take Shedeur Sanders at one.
Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, listen, I think I'm in the minority. Shedeur is my QB1 in this class. It was very close. I just like, personally, he doesn't have the arm talent and the arm strength that Cam Ward does. But, I mean, just the way he progresses through his reads, his accuracy is pinpoint. I love how he plays with moxie. He's not afraid to step up and take a smack in the heat of pressure. A little bit less athletic, a little bit less dynamic, but I think a lot higher of a floor on Shedeur.
Yeah, and I believe Cam's a little similar to Will Levis and the same similar flaws. So I would rather just not draft a similar style and then kind of spin your wheels for Tennessee.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
Jim.
I'll also shout out Jake, who podcasts with the Draft Professor. He's a Titans podcaster, and the Titans are all in on Sanders. So and really from a Callahan offense, Sanders is better for both the Titans and the Browns as a scheme fit for what they currently run.
Yeah.
So even though Ward might be rated higher, Sanders is a better scheme fit.
Yeah. And listen, this to me still isn't the class when you need a quarterback that you get unlucky, because although I think both are fine prospects, I don't think they're anything close to some of the quarterback classes we've seen in the past couple of years, last year specifically. But I digress. Shedeur Sanders is a Titan, and Jim, that'll leave you up with the Cleveland Browns.
So I've got 4 guys in my head right here, right? It's Hunter, Carter, Mason Graham, or Cameron Ward, right? Those are the 4 guys that are entering my head. And I'm going to shout out Cameron Ward to Cleveland. Just get a quarterback and then figure out what you're doing with redacted later.
Yeah, and Deshaun Watson re-tearing the Achilles probably takes him out of 2025. That contract just looks better and better every stinking day that goes by. I say that tongue in cheek, obviously. They're going to have to replace him at some point. So, and you got to hope that you're not picking 1 or 2 in future drafts. So if you have an opportunity to get a guy like Cam Ward, and I don't think, I don't think it really keeps the Browns from also dipping their toes in the free agent quarterback pool to bring somebody in there to either start before they hand over the reins to Cam, or at least give him competition in camp. But it's definitely not going to be Deshaun Watson in 2025. So you're going to need somebody behind that quarterback. The team has a lot of holes, and you could throw a dart and hit a player, and it probably would make sense for them. So
100%.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say same with your pick.
Oh yeah, exactly. This is an interesting one. It's not really interesting for me. I'm not going to take a quarterback. The Giants need a quarterback probably more than I think even Tennessee and Cleveland. There's just not that quarterback 3 who has really jumped off the page worthy of this selection. It's early in the cycle. Could something develop? Could one of these guys just wow during the All-Star bowl games? Could Jalen Milroe run, sub 4.4? That'll push his stock way up. But for now, I'm not comfortable here taking a quarterback. I'm going to assume that Joe Shane, who is somehow still employed, I'm going to assume that, he dips the bridge quarterback route in free agency, and there's a lot of holes, most of them on the defensive side of the ball. I think Deonte Banks, who they drafted a couple years ago in the first round, really hasn't lived up to that billing of a first-round cornerback. It might be the system. It might not. And right now, none of the coaching staff has changed. So when they brought in Cohen Bowen, what's his name, the defensive coordinator over there in the Giants, can't think of his last name. But he did run a little bit more quarters and cover 6 looks, a lot more zone than they did the previous year. So to me, you can have 1 or 2 really zone specific cornerbacks, but Travis Hunter's arguably the best non-quarterback in this draft class. You can sit him back there and use his ball skills, his anticipation, the way he clicks and closes on and anticipates as good as anyone in the class. Then you can, throw him in the slot if you want for a package or 2, 10, 15 plays on the offense and really get that double duty out of him. So Travis Hunter to the Giants, after the 2 quarterbacks are gone, to me is the closest thing to a no-brainer.
No, I agree. And it's good PR for the Giants, and it's a safe pick for Joe Shane too when it comes down to it, because he's tiptoeing that line. Whether he even if they do well in 2025, he still could be gone in 2026. So it's a great safety pick for him.
Yeah. Randall, you're up with the Patriots at 4. Now we start to get interesting because the Patriots, I think, are a team that can go also like the other teams. You can go many different ways, and the pick that happens here will probably dictate what happens with the next 10 picks. So I always find this spot very interesting in a non-trading situation.
For sure. And I do think a sneaky that they could use an extra edge. And, everybody's talking about where these edges are going and things along those lines. They do need help on the offensive line, but I don't know with this offensive line class, like the tackle class, is that great to use on a number 4 pick? I think if you're going to go tackle, you trade back sort of thing. So I think you sit tight, and I would probably take a BPA at Abdul Carter or go Tet McMillan. Those are probably my 2 that I'm thinking of at that moment. I would think that they search for wide receivers in free agency, but if they don't, I'm going to lock in Tet McMillan to help out Drake May and that offense kind of work. I know Polk didn't look great and things along those lines, but Drake May just needs help, and you can get offensive later in the draft.
Yeah, and I second the T-Mac pick because they need playmakers. Their offense is devoid of playmakers. And by the time they get to round 2, it's not going to be a blue chip playmaker with day 1 impact. So that T-Mac pick made sense. That also made this pick really easy.
Yeah.
Let us have it.
The BPA right now is Abdul Carter. There's only 2 other players I would consider here, and that's Graham and Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
But the key thing, so the Jaguars, while they need a corner, this is a new GM with a new head, or excuse me, it's the same GM with a new head coach. And if you take Will Johnson, who's injured, you might be on the faster exit on the GM side. So I don't think the Jags can afford the risk of Will Johnson, the corner, because he's hurt. And you don't take an injured player this high in the draft. So I'm taking Abdul Carter.
Insane BPA.
Yep.
And you line him opposite of oh my God, why can't I'm having
Walker.
brain fog today? Yeah. You got Walker
and Josh Hines.
Josh
Allen Hines.
Josh Allen Hines, exactly.
Insane.
where are you gonna block from exactly? And listen, and the thing with Carter, what people don't understand, and I've been high on Carter through the process. I think the playoffs, the NCAA, the college football playoffs, has really opened people's eyes to how athletic he is. Like, remember, he's only his first year as an edge rusher, right? He was an off-ball backer. Yep. So now you open up all sorts of other options on that defense, and we don't know who the coach is. We don't know who the head coach is. We don't know who the defense coordinator is. But that defense coordinator, if Abdul Carter lands to the Jaguars here at 5, is going to have a grin from ear to ear, right? Because it opens up some of those zone dog splits or zone dog blitzes where you can bring guys from all different areas. You could drop Abdul Carter off. You could drop, they did a lot of that zone blitzing where Trayvon Walker dropped off into flats coverage last year. So, so many things can happen with an opportunity, like when you have 3, high end prolific pass rushers like that. Like, that's a scary situation. Man, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I very much agree. I'm just terrified thinking about it.
And it leads me up with the Raiders. Oh man. So I've had this pick, I've had this pick in mocks before. This is another area where I think I'd like to lock down a right tackle opposite Colton Miller. I still think like Randall intimated before, to me, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze in regards to this class. They have needs. I've seen this. Some people say that, this is an Ashton Genty, landing spot. I think that the team is still more than a running back away. And with the depth in this class, I don't know if you need to reach for a running back here. I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm going to go with the player that the Jaguars should have taken, Jim. And that's Will Johnson at cornerback. Again, coming off of last year, I thought that Will Johnson was, in this coming off of last season. I thought he was in discussion to be the number one overall player in this draft class. I thought he was that good. I still think he's good. The foot, and I believe it was a Liz Frank or a high ankle that he had tightrope on. One of the two. I've gotten mixed reports on that, but it was obviously enough to keep him out of the year. And I don't know if it's enough that it's going to hamper him leading into camp. From what I understand, he's already working out in Arizona at Exos, preparing for the combine and all that stuff. So that's a good sign. Listen, Will Johnson's my third-ranked player in this class. I know the injury is real. I know the injury is going to be an issue. It's going to be a flag. As long as all things pass, that pass through with flying colors in regards to the medicals, there's just, he's got that rare size and athleticism and ball skills and everything that you're looking for. He's got the ability to play press. He's really, really good in zone. It's just like a lot of things that check off all the boxes that what you want in a pure CB1. So Will Johnson's going to be the pick, and that leads you up, Randall, with the most important pick of this draft right here, the New York Jets.
All right. Well, I think this one would be pretty easy since how the board is falling, and I hope that I don't mess this up for the Jets fans in that. Because to be honest, at first, Will Johnson was going to be that pick to be on the other side of Sauce, have those two lockdown quarters at the end. That was kind of where I was going with. But I think the next position of need, other than obviously quarterback, and you never know, but as we talk about Jalen Milroe, I would not be surprised if Jalen Milroe gets picked in the top 10 eventually because the national media hype will catch up to everybody in the offseason, and that combine will do wonders for him. But I'm looking at, obviously, even a BPA and a need combined in Mason Graham. And I would take Mason Graham right there. You guys need help on that front four with Quinn and Williams right next to each other. I think that's a wrecking ball to start. And that's just a good developmental piece to get your defense back where it was. And then looking at, it's hard to say that you guys will do well in 2025, but then in 2026, you're going to have that foundation and just be able to kind of take off running with a new revamped offense as well.
Yeah. And listen, that's a very common player that people pair up with the Jets. And I think Mason Graham's a phenomenal player. I question personally how his fit next to Quinn and Williams would be. I think he's more, very similar to Quinn and Williams as opposed to a better complement. But listen, at this point, like you said, there's so many other holes and so many, you really have to, if you're not getting a quarterback, you really have to just, in these first couple rounds for the Jets, just pluck off and check off boxes and best player available and make it work and build that foundation. So I'm not unhappy. Yeah. I'm not unhappy.
Thank you. All right.
Jim, with the Panthers, what are the Panthers doing, man?
Okay, so I am actually looking at the Draft Professor Panthers board. So if people are not familiar with the Draft Professor simulator, every team has their own board based upon people picking. And I'm going to give a shout out to Colt, the Draft Professor, because he and I have worked on the Panthers a little bit. Hunter's gone, Johnson's gone, Graham is gone, Carter's gone. Those are the top four players on the Panthers board. Mm-hmm. The fifth player is available. That's Jalen Walker from Georgia. And the other players to consider here would be Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan, and Malachi Starks. But I'm definitely going with Jalen Walker to get them some defensive line and edge help. Yeah,
I think that's – I love Jalen Walker. Yep. And I think he is a lockdown top 10 selection, no matter, where he goes. I considered him I considered him for the Raiders here as well, but I don't think we've even seen, I don't think the NFL or Georgia for that matter we haven't seen, I don't think his upside is even, his potential has even been tapped into yet. He's just getting into it again. Another one of those kind of hybrid off-ball backers, rush the passer. I mean, he plays so physical, like a freight train coming downhill. Still developing those pass rush moves. I think he wins a lot on just sheer, determination and athleticism, which is good at college. He's going to need to develop a little bit more of a pass rush bag at the end at the next level. But the versatility that he offers, the short tackling, the ferocity that he plays with, Jalen Walker is one of my favorite players in this class. What do you think, Randall?
Absolutely. I love Jalen Walker. When it comes to in that linebacker position, you're looking at for first rounders, Jalen Walker and then Gian Campbell. And those two are just dynamite players. So I agree with those Panthers. You need somebody in that middle, trading away to the Giants last year for the second. Brian Burns. You kind of got to replace somebody in that retrospect. Jalen Walker's that fit.
Yeah, I agree. And that would leave me up with the Saints. Man, this pick boggles me, and I will say this. I think if there is, I think they're a prime player to either they could, move up or they could possibly move down. Again, the Saints are, to me, an anomaly of the NFL. Year after year after year, they just keep kicking the can and kicking all this money down the road to get under it. At some point, you figure that you're going to have to pay the piper, and you're just going to have to buck up and take your lumps and swallow the cap hit so you can get back under. Because the problem is the Saints have all these big contracts that they can't afford to get rid of, and now some of these guys are just they're just getting old, right? I mean, I don't know how much longer Cam Jordan's going to play. Demario Davis is getting old. A lot of the guys on their offensive line, Eric McCoy, the center or the guard Cesar Ruiz. He's another guy that's that's probably at the point where if they could financially move on from them, they would have. But yeah, I think that you can consider a wide receiver here. I think, even though he's well off the board, I think Tet McMillan would be a fantastic complement to Chris Olave. I think maybe, even right tackle, if you want to consider moving Trevor Penning inside, even though, to Trevor Penning's defense, I thought he was a lot better last year than he has played in the previous years. I think there's help and need all along the defensive side of the ball. Paulson Adebo, I think, has a really serious injury. I don't know if he's going to, if he's coming back from that, and I believe is a free agent also. But do they spend another first-round pick on a cornerback? They just drafted Kool-Aid last year. I think he was late first, early second, if I can't remember. He might have been second-round pick. And then you look at the board, and there's not really a cornerback that I like in this area. They'd probably be a little bit of a reach. So I'm going to go and stick with a pick that might be a little bit boring, might be a little bit worn out, but it's a guy that I just think, when you think of the Saints and when you think of this, you think of the team and you think of their build, it's kind of in their line. Like I said, I don't know how long Cam Jordan's going to play. So why not go get a guy who, has the build and kind of a similar skill set to Cam Jordan. I'm going to take Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. 285 pounds, big body. I think for a big guy, even though his pass rush ability isn't necessarily super developed, he moves very, very well for a big guy. I really like him as a 3-down edge. I think he can, he steals that, he plays physical. He's got strong hands. He delivers a punch. He can really, hold his ground and plays disciplined. He plays disciplined run defense. And like I said, for a guy at 200 with a thick build like that, he's got some really short area quickness. He's got a spin move, and you got to, tip your cap to a guy at, almost 6'5", 285 pounds with a spin move. Yeah, he had, over a 30% true pass rush win rate last year. Nick Scorton's going to be my pick. And I know the Saints fans are going to get at me in the comments, because they do every week when I put out, either, a Shamar Stewart or a Nick Scorton or defensive ed du jour. But to me, when you look at this way this board falls, if you're not moving up or down, which we're not doing in this exercise, like you just got to plug a hole here. So to me, that's the biggest hole to plug.
If Nick Scourton took 2023 numbers and had those in 2024 in his production, then we'd be talking about him almost like Abdul Carter, to be honest.
Yeah. Yep. Who's up? Randall, you're up with the Bears.
All right. So I think it's pretty obvious that we should just go offensive line. I mean, they need help on that interior. So I would probably look for an interior, and I'm looking at Will Campbell moving into guard. So take Will Campbell, move him into guard next to Darnell Wright, and then they can help that inside offensive line, and then can be at least help out whatever Caleb Williams needs to work on sort of in the offseason.
Yeah, as big of a no-brainer as there is in this class, if the board would have fall like this, you just plug him in, you plug him inside at one of your guards. And even if you want to, you want to, dip your toes in the water and move Braxton Jones inside and let him play on the outside to see if he can hack it. Although I agree with you, I think his home is going to be inside. Jim, what are your thoughts on Campbell?
So I think that's too high for him.
Okay.
So you're going to hear it the entire draft cycle. He's listed as a tackle, but he's probably playing guard. And he's probably, we'll say, one of the 3 or 4 best offensive linemen in the class if you rank him at guard.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people are saying, well, even if he can't play tackle, he's still the 5th best tackle in the class, which tells you something. That's kind of an indictment on the quality of the tackle class. Nobody wants him to play tackle, yet he's still the 5th best tackle if your team desperately needs a tackle. So, I definitely agree with Randall on the Bears need an offensive lineman. So while in some ways that's not a bad pick because he's going to be able to see the field, I probably, for the Bears, would have gone defensive line here. Or done something with like a Walter Nolan. But again, is this too high for Nolan? I think that's part of the challenge, I think, with this section of the draft is because we're running out of first-round grades. So do you stick with the grade or do you find a need and reach on the player?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think I assume that they're going to get an offensive offensive-minded head coach, and to help with Caleb Williams. And I just don't see them going defense to start based on the contrast of what their defense is versus what their offense is. And you can see is if you're going to take another year, I mean, obviously you can get an offensive line in the 2nd and 3rd round, but I think you have to show even Caleb Williams that, listen, this is what our game plan is for you. We're going to do the best to make sure you succeed. And that is getting that interior at least handled. And Will Campbell can do it at guard.
So, and the Bears have 2 second-round picks, and that there's a sweet spot for when they pick for grabbing an offensive tackle. So that was part of what was playing in my head there. Obviously, we're only doing a 1-round mock here.
Yeah.
But I think their second-round picks are in the 40s.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I will say this. To that point, I think that there's, I mean, in my opinion only, I think there's oodles more depth in the defensive line class than the offensive line class, both at tackle or guard, right? So,
right.
To me, if I wait until the 40s to focus in on a defensive guy, I feel comfortable that I'm going to walk away with a good player, as opposed to if I take them now, and you said Walter Nolan, and it could be whatever defensive lineman you prefer there, but is the drop off from Walter Nolan to say, I don't know, I'm making up a name, Tyleik Williams or somebody like that, is the drop off big enough or small enough to say, yeah, I'd rather do that when you go from, instead of going from like Will Campbell to like whoever your next interior lineman or tackle is there. I think that gap's going to be bigger. So for me, I'm with Randall on this. Whether it's Will Campbell or not, I think it's offensive line. I think that to me, that has to be the focus.
Yep. Yeah, my second one was Membao and then moving Darnell Wright to left tackle.
Yeah. That would be. I don't know if Darnell has the speed for. I don't know if he's got the foot speed for left tackle. To be honest with you,
I think he played left tackle before his senior year, right? Junior year he played left tackle. Then then played right tackle. But yeah, maybe not. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Jim, 49ers. Where are you going, bud?
So I've got a few ideas here. So the first one is the quarterback with the most upside is still on the board, and that's Jackson Dart. So, like, anybody that follows me knows that I'm starting to say Jackson Dart is a first-round pick this year. So, like, you'll hear it here. So I'm contemplating Jackson Dart to the 49ers. I would have, if I had the Saints pick, he would have been the pick for the Saints. Right? So recognize that there's 2 or 3 ways to evaluate a quarterback. One way is, you look at the tape and say, what do you see? But then there's another way where when you're scouting the players, you're looking for traits and upside. And if Dart fixes his mechanics issues, he has the most upside of any quarterback in this class, even more than Cam Ward. So I'm torn between Dart and Walter Nolan here.
Go with your gut.
So I'm going to go Dart just because I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to take him with any of the other teams. But I am definitely planting a flag that Jackson Dart isn't making it out of round 1.
Wow. So, and listen, go ahead after you, Randall.
Yeah. This was the conversation that me and Jim had earlier about what 49ers will do with Brock Purdy. And my personal opinion is more towards the extension, while Jim is not.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Dom. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Dom.
no, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Like, is Jackson Dart the pick, regardless of what happens with the Brock Purdy extension? Or are you saying that they're going to not extend Purdy and continue to try to use the rookie quarterback wage to keep the team kind of beefy in the spots where they've spent money in the past year or two?
So the 49ers are an enigma. So I believe that the stat is in the last 27 years, they have made the conference championship 7 times and missed the playoffs 19 times.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they're either competing at the highest level of the league or they're not making the playoffs. Right? That's the 49ers, that's the enigma I was talking about. So the reason why I'm saying Jackson Dart is because Purdy, in 2 of his 3 seasons, has not finished the season playing. And it's been his throwing shoulder both times.
Okay.
So if the 49ers know more about that shoulder than anyone. Second, to Randall's point about the extension, any extension given to Purdy now increases his cap hit from the 1.2 million that it is now. So I don't think you extend Purdy this offseason for 2 reasons. 2 of his 3 seasons, he's ended with an injury. You want at least one more seasonal data point to know, does he finish healthy? Second, you can always franchise him after. The 49ers have all the leverage on Purdy that they need. But generally speaking, I would still say a quarterback like Jackson Dart, you fix his mechanics, and he gets to sit. 49ers already have a starting quarterback. So Dart isn't playing his rookie year, which is what everybody says that he needs. You just need to let him sit. So you take an off season, you let Dart fix the mechanics. You're going to franchise Purdy, and then you're going to make a decision after that season where you franchise Purdy. Do we like Dart, or was it a wasted pick? And the 49ers have wasted they wasted 3 draft picks on Trey Lance. They don't have to, they're not wasting 3 picks here, right? It's a single pick. So if the pick fails, there's plenty of other picks. The 49ers lead the league in compensatory selections. They've got more than enough picks the rest of the draft to address they're more glaring needs. But my opinion is when you see a quarterback that can be your starter, you need to take him. Right? Flat out. So that was why I did the dart pick.
Yeah, listen, I love it. I love the way you broke that down. It's one that I haven't heard. It's one that I haven't seen. And it's as you broke it down, it makes a lot of sense. I think you just lost probably every subscriber you had from Alabama for taking him over Jalen Milroe. So, but no, listen, I appreciate when you're, you plant your flag in for a guy, and you seem very, very real and very vindicated on your feelings for Jackson Dart. That was me last year for JC Latham. Like, I screamed from the mountaintops that he was the best tackle in the class. And I was on mountaintop pretty much by myself. But you know what? Listen, I can only trust. I can only believe what I'm watching, and what I saw was that. So I like that. I like that breakdown of how you see Dart fitting in for the Niners. So I'm on the clock with Dallas. Everyone knows what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna pass on the running back. I think they're, again, similar to the conversation we had about the defensive line class before. This is as deep of a running back class as there is. Now, is the gap between Ashton Genty and whoever your running back two is that much bigger? A lot of people say yes. I think Ashton Genty is a phenomenal player. I'm not downgrading that. I just think that you're still going to get a really good player later on. I don't know. I'm kind of that mentality that running backs for me, since I'm the GM here, and my thought process is running backs are a 4-year contract, wash, rinse, and repeat, and keep it moving. So if that's my mentality, and which it really is, I think that's what I really believe of the running back position. I'm not going to spend this high capital on it. So I'll counteract that with spending on another position that no one wants to spend high draft capital on. But if you look at this Dallas team, in the defense, like DeMarvion Overshown probably not going to play football next year. That's a shame. He was having a really good season. That linebacking core is pretty, outside of Overshown, it's pretty thin. I'm going to take Jihad Campbell here, and I'm going to place him in, and he's going to replace Eric Kendricks as my Mike backer. And I don't necessarily think, I know off-ball linebacker really don't go this high, especially after my diatribe of the running backs. But to me, I just think that, and I really, really wholeheartedly believe this, I think Jihad Campbell is one of the best players in this draft. He's a top 15 guy for me. That size, speed, 200, almost 245 pounds. The way he moves, he can go sideline to sideline if he wanted to. But I love the way he stacks and sheds and fits the run very well. Reliable, good tackler, versatile. To me, he's going to be a middle linebacker, in the mold. I'm not comping him, but in the mold of Brian Urlacher, who you're going to see on the field, that you're going to say, wow, how does that guy that size move that fast? Or how is that guy making every sort of play? That's what I really think Jihad Campbell is going to be in the NFL. So I'm going to take him here, and I'm going to pass on the running back, and we'll address that later in the draft.
And I 100% agree.
The Cowboys people that I podcast with will definitely second taking a linebacker there.
Yeah. And again, the only argument you can make, I happen to be a big Campbell fan, but the only argument to make is again, positional value at this high in the draft is an off-ball linebacker worth it. But if you get a guy that's going to be a 3-down player and be the centerpiece of your defense, like how valuable are the Fred Warners of the league, right? You can't. I don't know if you can hold the value to them. So,
yeah, you're looking at Dallas as a
linebacker. I think teams need to draft more linebackers. You don't have to sell me ever on taking a linebacker.
Oh yeah,
Randall with the Dolphins. Go ahead, man.
All right. Well, Chris Greer surprisingly still has his job, so that's surprising. And I think it's very now established that he knows that he does not invest in the offensive line, especially the offensive line running game. And I think people are going to be in his ear about that to get that going, taking it. They always have the speed guys on there. So I know it might be in reach on it, but I think that they should get the best run blocking tackle and grab Calvin Banks from Texas in there to help with their run game. Their offense is one-dimensional and McDaniel's style for that reason, because they have running backs back there. They can't really produce based on that offensive line. Get somebody who can pin, pull, push, get on the outside, and help those quick-speeded running backs get more yards, so then it helps out with Tua, Waddle, and everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one glaring hole outside of backup, or backup quarterback, I'd probably say it's the offensive line. Like at some piece, I know that they paid Austin Jackson, and Teron Armstead hasn't played a full season in who knows how long. So they drafted Patrick Paul, who was more, I know they took him in the second round. I saw him more as a little bit more developmental, and he did get some reps this year, and I know he's played a lot. But if you can get a guy like Calvin Banks, even if he doesn't supplant, one of those two starters, whether Armstead comes back or Austin Jackson, at least you have your, you could play him inside and play him at guard for a year before you bump him outside before Teron Armstead retires, something like that. So yeah, I love it. I like the pick. Jim, Colts, no brainer.
So it's a no-brainer. Like there's four players I'm thinking about, but the pick will be Michael Williams. But the other three players I considered were Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, and Malachi Starks. But ultimately, the Colts like players that have a specific measurement, right? Williams, we're expecting from the combine to hit all of the, let's say, the measurements of both, 40-yard dash, athleticism, arm length, etc. He doesn't necessarily have the film to back up being the 14th overall selection, but you're looking at the traits saying that can be an elite edge at the NFL level. And I believe that tends to be how the Colts draft. So that's why I picked Michael Williams there.
Yeah. Randall, any thoughts on Williams?
No, I love Michael Williams. I think that's actually a good fit. I did have actually tight end there. So when you mentioned Loveland and Warren, I thought for Indy, it's Tyler Warren right there. I think that's a perfect fit for Tyler Warren and the Indianapolis Colts. So that's where I had Warren going, was Indy.
Yeah. Leaves me on the clock with the Falcons. Being a Jets fan, I know everything about high expectations and just the bottom falling out of it. But, it's, outside of the Jets this year, there's probably no team that I had higher expectations that didn't really live up to them than the Falcons this year. I thought, I thought Kirk coming back, I took for granted a little bit that Achilles thing. I thought he was going to be the Kirk of old. They have all these nice, shiny toys on the offensive weapon side. A really dang solid, a really dang solid offensive line. And Raheem Morris, who's, is a defensive guy. I figured that everything would work well, and it just didn't. The defense just was flat out bad. We know what Kirk Cousins was, and the defense was flat out bad. So to me, this pick is definitely on the defensive side. I think they were 32nd in the league, and you can, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were 32nd in the league in sacks.
Yep.
So
they need pass rush.
Yeah, they need
a pass rusher. Rise up will rise up. So.
They need a lot. A pass rusher would make sense to me. I think this is a wonderful landing spot for Jihad Campbell if he falls, because their linebacking core is just awful. They need help in the defensive backfield, right? And that's what I'm going to do. I know pass rush is pretty poor, but again, I think that this class, you're going to be able to get somebody in the second or third round, which is going to come in and help you, play right away. Defensive backs, I don't know. To me, there's not that, there's not that level of depth in this class. I'm going to go ahead and take Malachi Starks out of Georgia. Safety, rover, nickelback. I think he can do, play him in the box. I think he can do everything. You have Jesse Bates there. Can you think, and I know they brought in Justin Simmons halfway through the season, but he's going to walk. If you have Jesse Bates and Malachi Starks, as your safety combo, and even, you can play Malachi, in the slot if you need to at certain times in certain situations. You want to go big nickel and bring in Richie Grant to play the box and let Jesse Bates roam center field and play Malachi Starks at the nickel. I think you do it. To me, the value for Starks is just way too high to pass, and especially for a team that has defensive needs all over the place. Why not go get an explosive athlete at 6'1", 205 pounds who plays and looks like a linebacker on film with the ball skills of Jesse Bates, who's going to be his running partner. So a little bit different, a little bit outside the box, but I just love the pairing of Starks to the Falcons.
Yeah, I do like that. I do have Giad Campbell going there. And then with that versatility, and I think I might be higher, which I might end up getting to pick him down there. Jade Barron with his versatility could be great too.
Yeah. No, that one fits too, but
no, Clint, who's a draft professor, Falcons analyst, because Campbell and Walker are already off the board, as well as Scourton, it would be Starks, I believe.
Yeah,
right.
I know that Clint. I know Clint's also very big on James Pierce also, and I thought about that as well. But like I said, I just think the value of a guy like Starks here on the board when you have so many holes, it is too good to pass up. So, Randall, this is going to be an interesting one because I'm always all over the board with the Cardinals. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you say.
Yeah. So first I thought defensive line to go into the defensive line, but then you're looking at like Darius Robinson, who didn't get to play this year, that they drafted in the first round. So I'm curious to see their thought process of potentially not going that way. Injuries on the offensive line did not help the Cardinals this year. So I feel like every pick that I'm coming to where an offensive line is a need with the Bears and such like that. So I was looking at the tackle position in Josh Simmons as he's rising through, or Membao. I think I'm going to go tackle, and I'm going to go Josh Simmons. I think he's going to rise very far throughout these playoffs he's showing out, and then through the combine, the offseason. I think that they need tackle help for sure with injuries and things like that.
Yeah. And then like we talked about it as well, Paris Johnson on one side, Josh Simmons, as long as he, passes the medicals on the other side, you got your bookend tackles there, and you don't have to worry about it hopefully for 10 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Yes. So for those that don't know this, I live right outside of Cincinnati. So even though I am a Bills fan, I am definitely in the jungle. So I want to give a shout out to Dale at Bengals and Brews, to Ryan Sparks, and to Parker Blake, because all three of them are Bengals draft guys, and they're part of the draft professor. So I feel like I've been well trained as to what this pick needs to be. So this pick needs to be defensive line. The players that I'm looking at are either Walter Nolan. They said they didn't like Kenneth Grant this high. Scourton's off the board. Xavier Watts is still available. Tyleek Williams, and then further down, Derek Harmon. Like those are the best available players according to what the Bengals people tell me. They're not high on Shamar Stewart, so they don't want him this early. So ultimately, my pick here, even though it's not an edge rusher, first round grade Walter Nolan to get the Bengals some defensive line help. I realize it's not an edge, but I think with the fact that Scourton is already off the board, and Jalen Walker and Michael Williams are already off the board, tends to make me go interior for this. And what I would also mention to everybody is when you see Walter Nolan go off the board, there's about to be a run on defensive tackles, right? Because there are several good ones in the draft. And at this point, I think people are going to trade up to get the rest of them because they're going to probably be trading up ahead of Buffalo. And there's a few other playoff teams that likely would want a defensive tackle. So as soon as that next defensive tackle after Graham goes off the board, I think you're going to see a lot of trades for teams to go up and get one. So
there's always trades in the 20s. 18 to 22, I feel like is just so volatile.
Yeah.
Right. It costs you a 4th round pick to move.
Right.
It's
right.
not
So
expensive.
just do it. Right. Just do it. Yeah.
So
Walter Nolan is the pick. I love Walter Nolan. There might be, and again, this is just me. There might be some defensive guys that I might have taken in front of him. Like, I think this is a great Shamar Stewart landing spot. And I don't care if you play him inside, outside, so on and so forth. But you can't argue with the talent of Walter Nolan anyway. So.
None of the Bengals guys that I've talked to like Stewart in round 1. So
I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
But I think the issue with Stewart is, I think from a measurement standpoint, he's going to look like a prototype, but he doesn't necessarily grade out to be a 1st round pick. And I think like for a player like Michael Williams, you see more explosiveness. So that's why he gets the 1st round pick, where Stewart is going to be more of a back half of round 1 kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, leaves me up with Seattle. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to take one, but I think that this is a sneaky play for a wide receiver. If there's somebody like Ayumanor or even Trey Harris or something like that, somebody that really jumps off here. Now I know that there's 2 other names in Luther Burden and Emeka Buka, who Emeka Buka I love. I love to pieces. I don't know if he's the fit for this offense because they already have JSN there. So I think that they're looking for that shifty, pure Z, a guy that can kind of play that flanker, stretch the field, good, so on and so forth. I think that's going to be a need for this offense. However, there's going to be a more focus on the running backs and running the ball and controlling the game that way. There's going to be a new offensive coordinator in town, and I'm sure that's going to be the focal point is going to be Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker and really utilizing that 1-2 punch. And to do so, you're going to have to fix what you got going up front, right? So for me, this pick's going to be Armand Membo from Missouri. I'm going to be fine playing him at one of the guard spots. I'm going to be fine playing him at right tackle because Abe Lucas consistently gets hurt over and over and over. So, you can let him compete at a guard spot with Christian Haynes, and let the best man win. Or even on the other side, I know they still have to address, or they're going to have to fill that center spot because Oluwatimi just, to me, hasn't really lived up to the bill. Or really isn't cutting it. But it's definitely going to be offensive line here. And for me, I'm going to take the guy that I think can be the jack of all trades with his, athleticism and his size and so on and so forth. So Membo's going to be my pick for Seattle.
Good pick.
Thank you.
Good pick. Yeah, love that. All right, mine got a little bit harder because Ashton Janty's on the board, to be honest with you. Because I thought he'd be gone. Javonte Williams won't be back with Denver, I assume, as though. Estimate was inactive today versus the Bills sort of thing. So I am looking at running back, but to be honest, I think the most important thing is probably getting a rookie contract quarterback's best friend, which is tight end, which they need very bad. And you need somebody with a good blocking technique as well, because if you watched Buffalo Bills run defense is not great, but we actually held them up. And honestly, I think it was taking advantage of not being able to set the edge on that side. So I'm looking at Colston Loveland, and I think Denver's perfect for Colston Loveland and taking him there.
Okay. Colson over Warren. Jim, what do you think about that?
I know Jolene likes Warren.
Yeah.
Right. But that had to be a skill position. So whether
Yeah.
that was going to be Egbuka, Warren, Loveland, Genty, like Randall was definitely thinking the same way I was.
I like Loveland better. I know Warren's a better pass catcher. I think Loveland's a much better blocker. I think he's more fit for what the NFL is evolving to with the run game and 12 personnel. I think he fits more in that system to help out Bo Nix for sure.
I'm not going to argue with it. Like they could be 1A and 1B for all I care. Their skill sets are a little different. So you went with the one that. And listen, I could see Loveland, having a Jimmy Graham red zone, presence, just like he did for Sean Payton in New Orleans years and years ago. So I love the pick. And Jim, Steelers, what are you doing, bud?
So first, I'm assuming Mike Tomlin is back. I am assuming that Arthur Smith is back, but that's not necessarily a good thing. So Tyler Warren is not the pick, but I had to think really hard. And then I'm thinking hard about Ashton Genty. But the Steelers, again, the way I'm looking at this is the Steelers can get a running back in another round, right? Who's going to be able to contribute day one. But they need wide receivers. They need wide receivers badly. And this is Emeka Egbuka coming off the board as wide receiver 2. He's coming off the board ahead of Luther Burden.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Burden's on the board. Burden wasn't even considered. That, for me, that pick was likely going to be Egbuka, possibly Io Manor. If I didn't realize I had Pittsburgh, that would have been a great Jackson Dart landing spot. Right?
Yeah.
So if Jackson Dart is there, Pittsburgh's taking him. I'm just going to tell you. But he already went off the board with one of my other picks. But Pittsburgh would go quarterback there. That would be Jackson Dart. Like I said, Dart is going in round 1. He has to sit a year and fix his mechanics. So, franchise tag Russ or put him on a 1 or 2 year deal, draft a rookie. And if Dart's mechanics get fixed, Mike Tomlin keeps his job. If you draft Jackson Dart and he doesn't work out, you're probably exiting Dart and exiting the coach at the same time, and the new coach gets to reset.
Yeah.
Do not franchise for us, though, right?
No.
I don't think
No.
I don't think that makes sense. But if you have to choose between giving Russ a 3-year deal or franchising him, I'd rather do the 1-year rental.
I would send him packing if he wouldn't take a 1-year deal. Figure it out somewhere else. Go get Joe Milton.
Yeah. Well, I will say this about the actual pick you made for the Steelers.
Yes.
Egbuka he's my wide receiver 2. I think him and Besh from TCU are probably the 2 best route runners in this class.
That's Randall's guy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I think Emeka is right up there with the best route runners in this class. People say he's going to be slot, he's going to be slot only, which is fine. I think he's got a little bit more inside-outside versatility, but I love the player. And last year he was injured and had a down year, so on and so forth. I think he played great this year. I think 2 years ago he's even better, and I think the signs pointing up. I will say this, not to discredit your pick, Jim. When's the last time the Steelers took a first-round wide receiver? It's been a while, right?
And I think I would probably agree with you, which is why it's time to take one. But
Yeah.
I want to give Randall a shout out on Jack Bash because I doubt that he goes in this mock. But when we were podcasting over the Draft Professor and we were doing scouting reports, Randall's coming into these wide receivers blind. He doesn't necessarily. He may have seen him play a little bit, but he didn't have a board built. And he was comparing his scouting report on Jack Bash with somebody else, and Randall's he's a top 64 player. He's not getting out of round 2. And Randall was planting that flag in October.
Yeah, it's the truth.
Right.
Yeah, he's great. I love him.
Right. So I'm going to give a shout out to my guy Randall, because if he's planting that flag and other podcasts say we didn't watch Jack Besh until he got a Senior Bowl invite,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, there are podcasts that cover players more thoroughly than the other podcasts that you might be used to watching. I'm just saying.
But I'm on the clock here with the Chargers, and you guys messed up, man. Because I'm taking Ashton Genty here, and I'm not even thinking
Beautiful.
twice. I'm not even thinking twice about it. You probably have the coach and the offense coordinator that want to run the ball down your throats with power and control the clock that way more than any other of the other 31 teams in the NFL. And who better to do it with than, a guy, who has the contact balance like I don't think I've ever seen in a running back that I've scouted. He's really light on his feet, obviously sturdy, physical. I think he's kind of, he's shown, even though he's never asked to do it too much. I think he's got like very soft hands. He could be a natural receiver. I mean, this is an easy run the card up to the commissioner kind of pick for me. Ashton Genty, not much has to be said more about him. We all know who he is. And listen, this is interesting that he fell this low. I think it's realistic that it could, just because of the positional value that teams have on running back. So if he is going to fall into the 20s, is there a better fit than Genty to the Chargers? Probably not.
No. Do you think if Loveland was available there, do you think Jim would put his hand saying that?
You know what? Warren or Loveland would have been my pick if Genty wasn't on the board, or maybe or maybe a receiver as well. Like I think Iamaner could be in play here. I don't know if Burden really, I think he is. If between him and Egbuka, I think Burton's going to be really slot specific, and he's that that shifty short area stuff that they got a lot in Lad. I think it would be a little bit redundant. So, Warren or a receiver would be my pick here if Genty wasn't on the board.
I love it.
Yep, and that leaves you, Randall, with the Packers.
All right, the Packers. So I have two options. I think they go interior offensive line later in the draft. So they'll go towards either an edge or a cornerback. And I'm looking at Benjamin Morrison. Then I'm looking at James Pierce Jr. out of those two. I think that they need on the other side in the cornerback a little bit more personally. So I'm going Benjamin Morrison with that pick to get the other side of that cornerback, even though I think James Pierce would have fit well too.
Yeah. Yeah. Morrison's going to have to, Morrison's going to have to show that he's healthy from that hip injury.
I think he will be good. I've seen a lot of if like where they sat him, why they sat him, and stuff like that, and what it's about with the hip. So I've heard very minor. So I think the medicals come out fine in the offseason.
Yeah, and listen, if it does come out fine, you could see him in the top half of this draft. I think I think he's that talented.
Yep.
Agreed.
And then one of the draft professors, two of them are Packers fans. One of them is going to point out Maxwell Hairston right there at pick 22. So even though he's probably not a first-round grade, he's close enough, and he hits all of the measurables that the Packers typically will want in a corner.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing a mock draft with one of the Packers guys, it was fascinating because you see a big board. But he's like, those four guys you have at the top, he says they don't have the measurements for Green Bay. They're not even going to be on the board.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So, no, I definitely like the corner pick. So,
yeah, me too. I think. Listen, Jair Alexander's not getting any younger, and I don't know if through Alexander's tenure as the mainstay cornerback one in Green Bay, if they've ever had a good running mate over there. I know they drafted Eric Stokes a couple years ago out of Georgia, and he never really panned out. And they traded one of the corners to you guys, a couple years back. So, so cornerback to me, I think is the need for the Packers. I don't know. Tampa's up, and that's you, Jim.
Okay, so this is I'm sitting here between edge and DB, and like Shamar Stewart's interesting, but one of the things that I don't think we're talking about enough with this draft is what the cornerback market looks like. And what I mean by that is, does your team need a starter at corner? And if you do, I think by the end of round 2, pickings will be slim.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So can I see the corner board? Because I think Ravel is still available, right?
He is.
This is Siobhan Ravel. And I see that Barron was there and that PFF has Barron higher, but nearly everybody else I talk to has Ravel as a true first round grade. And the biggest issue right now is that he's hurt. So I think Tampa Bay is spreading that card up. If Ravel is still on the clock, they definitely need a corner. They get themselves a good one, and they're a playoff team.
Yeah.
Right? Because actually, is that the game? That might be the game that's on right behind this.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So
well,
I like Ravel, true first round grade, you sprint the pick in.
I'll say this. I don't have a first round grade on Ravel. And I actually, I have Jahdae Barron graded higher than Ravel. However, when you look at that defense in Tampa Bay, where they want to bring blitzes, I think they were second in the league in cover zero blitzes. They want to play man across. There's probably no better at barring the health. And listen, a clean ACL break for a 21-year-old is like, like us stubbing a toe. You know what I mean? So I'm sure that he'll be back to it. And when you talk about that physical press man style coverage, that's Revel all the way. So although I don't necessarily, I don't have him with a first round grade, and I think there's other cornerbacks that I like better. The fit to me here is chef's kiss. And I'm up. And I'm up with the Rams. I will say this. I knew what I was going to do coming into here. However, I'm going to do a little digging, and I'll explain why. I have the guy that I thought I was going to pick. However, I'm going to be honest. I didn't expect Tyler Warren to still be on the board. I don't know what the salary situation is for what's his face, the tight end that they have here.
Is that Higbee?
Yeah. Is he under contract? That's what I'm trying to find out. I'm gonna do a little bit of due diligence here. Is he under contract?
I'm checking right now.
2 years, $17 million. He is, let's see, a cap hit of 8.7 next year with a free agent 2026.
Yeah, at 31 years old.
Yeah.
I don't think they're getting rid of him next year.
Like next year's his last season that he's on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
25. He's going to play under that number. I know they have Colby Parkinson. Well, they got Colby.
I would just say it doesn't matter. Like Warren's there, you need a tight end.
Yeah.
And
I was going to take. I'm going to take Warren. And like I said, because they drafted Davis Allen a couple years ago. Nice player, nothing more than depth. I know that Colby Parkinson had some. He had some moments filling in for Higbee, but. Higbee's 31 years old. He's going into what will be his last year of his contract because I think he's got some void years. I can't let them pass up on a talent like Tyler Warren, regardless of what the depth in the tight end room looks like. There doesn't have to be much discussion here, but I will say this: if Warren wasn't on the board, this was going to be a quarterback.
Corner or quarter? Sorry.
Quarterback.
Oh, this would be a great spot.
This is absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. 100%.
So, this is a good one too. I think this one can be interesting. I would love to hear what you have to say about the Texans, Randall.
All right. Well, I believe that they go interior offensive line later on in the draft, and they figure out along those lines because they definitely have to fix that. But when you're looking at the 25th pick, you're looking at they converted Stephon Diggs into a 1-year contract. He's going into free agency. Tank Dell probably won't play in 2025, so he's gone. So you're looking at John Mechie. You could see in that playoff game, even though that they won because the Chargers, just imploded. Lot drops on John Mechie, things along those lines. You're looking at Nico Collins just staring him down at all times. So with Luther Burden sitting there at 25, I think Luther Burden is a great pick to complement Nico Collins and put that together to help CJ Stroud out and then fix the interior offensive line probably in rounds 3+ and get a interior defensive line in round 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bobby Slowik can unlock Burden.
Oh yeah.
Right. That's the good offensive coordinator for a player like Burden to go to.
Probably the top wide receiver that doesn't match a production. Like in difference of.
Mm-hmm. So what does the tackle board look like right now?
I'll tell you.
Okay, this one's easy. I'm sprinting the pick in.
Okay.
This is Josh Connerly. It's not close.
Yeah.
Washington did not have a chance to draft a tackle last year. So I need to applaud the Commanders draft. They went BPA, but BPA was never a tackle. And then they just came in here, and there's some people that are going to say that Connerly is tackle 1. Some people are going to say it's Simmons. Some people are going to say it's Connerly. But they're getting a true tackle. They're a playoff team, and they're getting their guy at the end of round 1. Oh, I think Commanders are going to be like jumping up and down if Connerly falls this far. So
yeah, I mean it makes sense. You can. I think you can sell me on an edge rusher here as well. But again, we've talked about the depths of the classes differentiating so much that I think you got to stick a tackle here as well. So I'm on the board here with the Ravens. I got to be honest. I don't know if I think wide receivers are need.
Definitely.
I don't know if that's going to be your best value here. I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze in a guy like Ayuman or in a guy like Trey Harris or whatever wide receiver here. Whatever wide receiver that you prefer, Jaden Higgins. And I wonder, I'm just talking this, I'm thinking this out loud here. I'm just talking through this. I wonder if they will dip back and take consecutive first round cornerbacks. That's some. Go ahead.
They're also having a major problem on the interior offensive line.
Yeah, well, that's what I was. That was my third option. That Daniel Falele probably isn't the future.
Like a Tyler Booker or Jonas Savanea or a Tate Ratledge, depending upon which one you have rated higher.
Yeah. But again, I think that, man, I'm looking at I'm looking at the cornerback room, right? Marlon Humphrey ain't getting any younger. He's not. Nate Wiggins has struggled. I know they signed Trey White.
Did they really?
Yeah, but I think it's just for 1 year, and I don't know how much he's got. I don't know how much he's got left. I'm gonna hold off on the interior, and I hear you what you're saying with that interior. And this, to me, I think this would be a great spot for Wyatt Milam. I think this would be a great spot.
I think Milam here, that would be a good pick. I do agree with that.
I think Milam, you plant him in that right side between Rosengarten and Linderbaum, and you're cooking with gas. But I'm gonna go Jahdae Barron. I'm gonna go Jahdae Barron. Like I said, you can play him outside if you need to. I think his home is going to be in the nickel. You can even play him in a too high post if you needed him to. He's a guy who's right on the cusp of having that, that to me, like that solid first round grade. He didn't. He's got in that first, second realm. But he's done everything at Texas. From safety to nickel to outside. So he's versatile, and he's gotten better year after year after year. So Jahdae Barron's going to be the pick for me.
I like it. And that may even unlock Kyle Hamilton Because
Absolutely.
You can put Barron
Yeah,
where
you can get him out of the nickel and kind of get him back into a spot, or into a spot where he can just affect the field and roam wherever he wants. Kyle Hamilton.
Yep.
Yeah, Nate Wickens
Yeah.
Nate Wickens has struggled this year. There's no denying it.
Kind of a roller coaster. He's had some great plays, but then just awful.
Yeah.
At times.
You're up, Randall.
Yeah,
Minnesota Vikings.
I was gonna pick Jade Barron, so thanks for that.
No, I have been mocking Barron to the Vikings.
I mean,
Vikings picks. So yeah,
because their backfield's aging and things along those lines. They kind of got to sit there. So I am I mean, I do like Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. I think he's a first round grade for sure. I think he sticks there. If you're looking at interior defensive, Kenneth Grant could definitely work. Harrison Phillips is getting a little bit older, and he has had a couple of ankle and knee injuries sort of thing. So you could look at that in a rotational standpoint. But I think I'll stick with Trey Amos, Ole Miss, take him and help in that backfield for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it should be pointed out also that the Vikings don't have a lot of draft capital, right? Because their second belongs to Buffalo as part of the Stephon Diggs trade. So the Vikings, if they have a need, whatever, after free agency settles, whatever that need is, has to be the pick at round 1, because they're not going to have a lot of other picks to recoup unless they trade back.
Wait a second. Did you say that Buffalo owns Minnesota's pick as part of the Stephon Diggs trade? Wasn't he traded like 4 years ago?
Okay.
Houston had the Vikings' second pick in the trade.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Now, from the Will Anderson thing, now it makes sense.
Yes.
Houston traded their first to Minnesota last year, and they got a 2024 second and a 2025 second. Then they took the 2025 second and they traded it for Stephon Diggs.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Now it makes sense.
Yep.
Jim.
Yeah, he didn't really explain that quickly.
Yeah. Jim, Buffalo fan of the year.
So
Jim Wickens.
I bet Randall and I both know who the pick is here.
I'm going to guess who the pick is. Can I guess? And you can tell me yes or no. Kenneth Grant.
100%.
Yeah.
Sign it up. I am shocked.
If he made it to
Buffalo. But
if he falls there.
Yes. But if Grant's not there, Tyleek Williams, Derek Harmon, Alfred Collins. To me, the Bills pick, if it's not a defensive tackle, it would really surprise me, because we have had such bad luck with interior defensive linemen getting sniped before we were able to draft them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Daquan Jones, after his shoulder injury, tricep injury, I believe. I mean, he never came back from it, and he's not building any pressure in the middle. And honestly, Ed Oliver is a great player, but he doesn't take double teams on well. He only succeeds with a great nose tackle. That's what we need for any sort of pressure.
Yeah. Listen, I'd hate to see it, because I agree with I agree with everything that you just said. If there's one hole, listen, could you maybe upgrade or replace Rasul Douglas? Yeah. Could you upgrade on Taylor Rapp? Who might not even be under contract. I don't know. Yeah, but there's probably no bigger pressing need than that running mate for Ed Oliver.
And all the other positions that you listed, Dom, this draft is relatively deep in, except defensive line. And Buffalo has 2 second-round picks.
Yeah.
So at the back of the second round, we're likely still going to be able to get a cornerback that can tackle. And we can also likely get an edge rusher that meets, let's say, like a guy like Jared Ivey, who may not have the productivity, but he has all the length that Buffalo tends to really like in their edge rusher.
Yeah, I got you. It makes sense. Man, this is an interesting pick. I'm up with the Eagles. Okay. And again, I know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to talk out my thought process here. I know what I'm going to do. All right. I think that wide receiver is up for debate. They got the Jahad Dotson trade in early in this offseason. I believe he has one more year on that rookie contract. So I don't know if it's a super pressing need. Obviously, you have your wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 locked in. You know that Philly loves to build in the trenches. They may or may not have to replace Mekhi Becton at right guard, but I think and you have an aging Lane Johnson there at right tackle. At some point you're going to have to replace him. I'm assuming, right? I don't know who's on the. I know that they have some guys in Tyler Steen and Trevor Keegan who they drafted last year out of Michigan that could, if Mekhi Becton walks, are pipeline guys ready to step in. I don't know if you have that right tackle. All right. And we talked about this tackle class not being deep. So, knowing who Lane Johnson is and the size that, at 6'6", 325 pounds, 6'7", almost 325 pounds. Big tackles or something, that can move or something that they're going to look for. So this is going to be Ariante Ursary for me. I don't know if he's necessarily the best tackle on the board here, but when you're talking about size, when you're talking a guy that can maul in the run game, and when you're talking about a guy that can move, in the run game and get out in space and take those good angles and seal off and, really, really be strong in those aspects. It's Ariante Ursary. I question his true, I question him in his 45 sets and his vertical sets, as a pass rusher. I don't know if he moves, all that well that way, but, which is why I thought of Savanea here. I also thought, I'm not very, I don't see Milam as a tackle more so. I love Milam. I don't see him as a tackle. To me, I think you could probably get away with your best fit in their scheme of really wanting to run the ball, whether it's with Saquon, whether it's, with the quarterback. To me, I think arguably the best run blocking right tackle, regardless, devoid of scheme, because I think Ursary can fit a gap scheme, and I think he can also play, he could also, fit a zone blocking, wide zone offense as well. So Ursary is going to be the pick. I'm not going to think too much more of it. And that leaves Randall up for 31.
All right. Now, when we're looking at 31, for me, for the Chiefs, the most glaring is linebacker, cornerback, and tackle, of course, because left tackle is the most glaring need. But are they available at 31 sort of thing? Is the value there? I do think losing L'Jarius Sneed was bigger than they expected. So I think a cornerback on the other side can be a good pick as well. I think I'm looking at tackle, and I think I'm going Savanea because they need that. I mean, obviously it's been throughout the whole entire year. It's left tackle, left tackle, left tackle. They're moving their guards to left tackle sort of thing. I know that he is more of a right tackle, but then mix and match, figure out what you can do with him to get it. But offensive line is clearly the most glaring need. So we'll just kind of take who I think is a great tackle.
Yeah.
No,
don't let the PFF grade there fool you. Just because PFF is Savanea at player 70.
Oh, I wasn't looking at that.
Yeah. Well, anybody that's watching.
Yeah.
I just wanted them to know that I think the consensus of the people that I'm talking to have Savanea is going to be a top 64 pick.
Yeah, and listen, if he is the pick there, they are now going to have the two tackles with the hardest names to say between Kingsley Suamatea and Jonas Savanea. So
there you go.
Mean,
Sitcom in itself.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
And for the sake of this video, remember, we are going 33 picks. Once the 32nd pick happens, you're going to see the mock draft close. But we are going to make one more pick. Who is it? Tennessee, right? Tennessee's the next pick.
Yeah.
So, Jim, you're up with the Lions.
Okay. So let's do some process of elimination. So let's look at the linebacker board. So it says that they need a linebacker. I agree. But let's just do process of elimination by needs. I don't see a linebacker here that's worthy of a first-round pick. I'll give a shout-out to Hail Mary Sports that maybe Jack Kaiser is the pick here if the Lions like him as much as Hail Mary Sports, but I'm just going to say that that's a no. The next one is center. And again, this is an easy process of elimination. There is not a center listed right there, right? Like there's nobody to take at center this high. So now you're left with edge, guard, or I'm also going to say wide receiver, but let's look at the edge.
Sure.
And
man, there's a lot of good players left on the board.
There's a
Yeah,
look how
for
deep
real.
this is. Look how deep this is. Oh my God.
We haven't even talked about Mike Green yet.
I know.
So I'm going to eliminate a couple guys here. So Landon Jackson flashes, but I think as analysts, I think we're ranking Landon Jackson too high.
I also don't think he's the right fit for what they're, to play opposite of Aiden.
Yeah.
So Pierce is athletic, but I don't get the impression that that's a Dan Campbell guy. So there's some athletic or some freaky traits there. But between Sawyer and Stewart, I think that's the Lions pick. I'm going to suggest Stewart. So you can go ahead and make that pick there. And let's find out let's look at all my picks. And I'm probably have the lowest grades there.
Well, we got one more. Don't forget. We do have one more. Shamar Stewart comes off the board for Detroit. I am on the clock for Tennessee. And I can go. There's still a bunch of different ways that I can go. We took Cam Ward in the first, right?
Yeah.
So you know what? I'll keep this short and sweet.
Sure.
I'm gonna take a guy that I happen to be a little bit higher on than consensus. But if you think about that wide receiver core, it needs help. I'm gonna take Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. At 6'3", 210 pounds, more of a possession guy. They drafted who's the kid they drafted a couple years ago to replace AJ Brown with the draft pick they got with AJ Brown. Treylon Burks. Hasn't really panned out. The hands on Trey Harris and the way he extends in that catch radius is, for me, something that's really, really good. I love the way what he does with the ball in his hand. I think his play strength is really good. To me, he is your prototypical, boundary guy, something that they've been missing since AJ Brown's gone. So Trey Harris would be my pick here at 33 for the Tennessee Titans.
I think this year he had the highest yards per route run in the league at 5.15 yards per route run, which is insane.
Yeah, crazy. So there's our 33 picks, and let me remove this off the board and bring our 3 mugs back up here. First round +1.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, like this flew, and I enjoyed myself, and I really appreciate you guys coming up. So take the time, tell everyone where they can find you and where they can find your stuff and what you got going on.
All right, yeah, at Randall Slifer on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can find me on both, and then I'm doing NFL draft content with Jim over at Draft Professors. We're doing tight ends, and then I don't even know what's in store for the offseason once the NFL ends, but it'll be nonstop, daily and weekly.
Yeah. And Jim, what about you?
Yeah, so my name's Jim. I run Draft Professor, which is basically a group of 25 people podcasting on the draft. We recently found Dom, and he hasn't podcasted with us yet. He doesn't know what he volunteered for, but he'll find out soon enough. But we have daily draft podcasts. You can find all of that content at NFL Draft Fanatic. It's the same handle on YouTube and Twitter. There's no I in Fanatic. And I like talking about the draft, and I can talk about the draft for hours. So even though we were shooting for 55 minutes and this went way more than that, I don't care.
Yeah, it flew. It didn't seem like it went longer, but it was great to have you guys on again. I appreciate you cutting out and carving the time in to hop on my show and my channel. And ladies and gentlemen, do yourself a favor and go give these guys a follow on Twitter. Their handles are up in their profiles. It's across the ticker on the bottom. It'll be at the end of the video as well. And while you're at it, leave a like, leave a comment, get that discourse going. Do me a favor because it helps the YouTube algorithm, which I'm always battling left and right to try to figure out how to get my content out to more of the masses. So you guys who are watching this, leaving a comment and doing all that stuff really will go a long way. So I'm Dom C. Project Prospect with Dom C is the channel. This has been another episode of the Draft Dodgers. And until next time, folks, see you later.